New research reveals cadmium's route into chocolate. Lauren Quinn, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, phys.org reports, committed chocoholics be warned. A health-robbing heavy metal, cadmium, lurks in the velvety recesses of your favorite indulgence, chocolates that is. Researchers chased the source of cocoa's cadmium contamination for years, but an array of distinct sampling methods and sites led to mixed results in the new analysis. University of Illinois scientists consider the soil factors influencing cadmium's ride into cocoa beans with the aim of recommending feasible, cost-effective ways farmers can minimize the uptake. Instead of trying to glean universal drivers of cadmium uptake from single studies conducted here and there, we said, let's look at this across the entire cocoa belt. This is what Jordan Wade said, who coordinated the effort as a postdoctoral researcher of University of Urbana. Wade is now an assistant professor at University of Missouri. Wade worked on with the graduate students of the College of Agriculture, Consumer and Environmental Sciences, ACES for short, at Illinois, as well as crop scientist assistant professor Andrew Margineau. And together, they reanalyzed thousands of data points reported in dozens of published studies from cocoa cropping systems around the world. Their synthesis appears on +1. They said, we found it. It was the total amount of soil cadmium and pH that explained the amount of cadmium that ends up in the bean. Margineau said it seems too little simplistic, but it is consistent with soil chemistry theory. When you get into more acidic pH values, cadmium is more soluble and more available to the plant. That was the major takeaway. Acidic pH values also contributed to the bioaccumulation of cadmium in leaves and beans, Wade said. Understanding the roots of cadmium into the bean is the first step to mitigate its uptake, the researcher said, and there's more reason than ever to keep cadmium levels low. Recent EU regulation capped cadmium is at 0.1 to 0.8 milligrams per kilogram, depending on the cocoa product. I support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. Margineau says the standard is forcing many companies to limit imports from cocoa-producing regions in the global south, where soils are naturally high in the heavy metal cadmium. While cadmium in cocoa products is a legitimate health concern, chocolate is a leading source of dietary cadmium in non-smokers. The regulation is bad news for 8 million smallholder farmers for whom cocoa is an important cash crop. These farmers might make $1,000 a year if they're lucky. Heavy metal remediation is out of reach for them, Margineau says. So after finding that soil pH and total cadmium are the biggest factors that control cadmium in the bean, we're finding evidence pointing to lime as mitigation measures. Liming soils brings down the acidity, making cadmium less soluble and less likely to be taken up by the plants. But Margineau admits that liming is not necessarily simple or affordable or even accessible for Amazonian farmers. The product is not likely available at the corner store, and although lime is relatively inexpensive in the US, it's not cheap in high poverty contexts. Despite these challenges, Margineau says lime generally increases yield for cocoa. Because it could have dual benefits, liming could be worth the effort and cost. He says if you're going to ask people to invest in expensive inputs, assuming they can find them, it's nice if they can deliver multiple benefits. In their review, Wade and Margineau noted studies reporting variation among cocoa cultivators in terms of cadmium uptake. Could plant breeding be the answer? It's really tough to fight soil chemistry or on anything, so breeding cocoa varieties or rootstocks that are less susceptible to uptake might be one way out of this. The problem is that most of the world's fine cocoa is grown by small farmers, largely in South America, on maybe 1 or 2 hectares, Martineau says. They can't really afford to invest in new germplasm. Although the study offers no silver bullet for impoverished growers, it provides a map for future research. By critically evaluating the available data and methods, we now know that total cadmium and pH are key factors. We also found things like sampling depth matter. Those factors are not currently standardized across studies. It's kind of a mess, Martineau says. As a community of researchers, we could be doing a lot better, but now we know a way forward, he says. Wade says there are lots of strategies we can try, like matching rootstocks or soil conditions. Our results here help us better direct our energy and resources. By the way, neither researcher plans to stop indulging in chocolate despite the dangers of cadmium. Of course, they're going to keep eating it. Martineau says, I've eaten cocoa beans from farmers in Ecuador without hesitation. It takes a lot of chocolate to get to danger levels for adults. I think it's fair to say people should not stop eating chocolate, he says. And Wade says, especially here in the US, where so many people eat milk chocolate, it has much lower cocoa content and therefore much lower cadmium content. And chocolate companies blend cocoa sources and make other efforts to reduce cadmium in their products. But for me personally, I still enjoy dark chocolate, he says. This is by University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, phys.org. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.